Okay. Okay, folks. Sorry we're a little bit late coming back. It's now 6:35, and let's reassemble. We need to have a motion to read us back into open session again.
Okay, I move that this council certify by a recorded vote that to the best of each council member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Thomas, you take the vote, please.
Councilor Payne?
Yes.
Councilor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Yes.
It passes 4-0. So we're back in open session. And the first item of business, I think the printed agenda, the pre-printed agenda has a little bit off, but the first item of business is the council seat announcement of, or actually election of a person to take that seat. Is there a motion for the appointment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I move that that the City Council appoint Leah Puryear for their uncompleted term for Sina McGill.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Do we want to have any discussion now, or do we want to hold that for after a vote? Let's just go ahead. And Ms. Thomas, you take the vote, please.
Councilor Payne?
Yes.
Councilor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Yes.
That motion passes 4-0. Congratulations to our newly elected city councilor. Now, the clerk of the court is here and is ready to swear you in, so you don't have to go find her tomorrow. This doesn't make you officially on council tonight because there are a bunch of forms you got to fill out first, but at least we'll get the swearing in taken care of.
Right there. Ready for this? I'm ready. You sure? I'm positive? Absolutely. All right. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, please state your name.
I, Leah Puryear,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a member of the Charlottesville City Council
as a member of the Charlottesville City Council
for a term beginning on February 27th, 2023,
for a term beginning on February 27, 2023,
and ending on December 31st, 2023,
and ending on December 31st, 2023,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
And now, it's not formally a part of the agenda, but I think, well, I want to come down and shake your hand, too. If you want to, you can.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just say a few things.
Yeah.
Just a few words. Grateful for everyone who put their name in the hat. It was a difficult choice to make. I'm confident that I just makes us feel good about the city and the future that we have, and we have particularly some newer folks that have expressed interest in service. Very grateful for that, and appreciate the people that did spend the time and the effort to put in an application to come and sit down with us. It was a challenging decision because there were so many good people, but I'm grateful to have Ms. Puryear up here with us for the rest of the term.
Yes, and I concur. I'm most appreciative to the 20 candidates and to the final 6 that we had. It was very difficult. We were there literally to the last minute because everyone just had so much positive attributes to serve on council. This was difficult, and you know, this is a trust that the public gave to us to make this decision for the next 10 months or so, and it's something that we did not take lightly as we went through this discussion. So I look forward to working with Leah again. We worked many years on the school board together, and as well as the other candidates that express interest, because we have a lot of work to do in this city, and we look forward to rolling up our sleeves and getting to work.
Okay, thank you.
I would also say that, you know, I was really impressed with the folks who applied. I was really impressed with the folks that we interviewed, but also a lot of the folks that we didn't interview. And I said it a couple weeks ago, and I'll say it again, that there are a lot of folks on this list of applicants that I really hope we will see in other connections, in other times, and other opportunities, because there are a lot of very intelligent people who have told us that they care very much about the city, and I want to put everybody to work as we can. So, anyway, anything you want to add?
Everybody said it all. But, very difficult decision, but it was fortunate to have tons of great applicants, and fortunate that you stepped up and are willing to serve the city.
You have an opportunity, but you don't have to.
I'd like to say thank you to all of the council members for all the time and energy and effort you put into this process. I'd like to say thank you to all 19 people plus myself that applied, and to those of us that made the final round. I had some very tough competition, and I was very much aware of that, but I am willing to do the work and roll up my sleeves and get started. And I just want to say thank you again for entrusting me with this position and all of the rights and privileges thereof that go along with it. And I'm excited to join the 4 gentlemen that are before me this evening. Thank you again.
Thank you. And Ms. Thomas wants to make sure that you come see her, and she'll catch up with you afterwards. Thank you so much. The next thing on the agenda supposedly is a moment of silence, but that usually happens before we start back up again. So why don't we move on to the announcements. Councilors, are there any announcements? Well, one announcement that I think we need to make is about the meetings this week to discuss the zoning rewrite modules. The first one is tomorrow night, February 22nd, in the CHS cafeteria from 6 to 8:30. There is another one Thursday night in the Buford cafeteria, 6 to 8:30. And then on Saturday noonish, 11 to 1:30 p.m. at City Space. It is... I would say if we added up all of the different things we were supposed to have read about Module 1, it's about 160 pages of reading. And it's interesting, and I hope that people will really engage with it, because I think that there are a lot of things that people are saying about the zoning rewrite that I'm not entirely sure are accurate. And until you sit down there and really engage with it yourself, you won't know whether the friends that you thought you have trusted all these years, whether they're actually giving you the straight scoop. So I encourage everybody to get involved, come to one of these modules, probably one of these meetings. There will be another module released in March, similar schedule of meetings, another module released in April, similar schedule of meetings, so we hope everybody will be involved. The second thing I wanted to mention in terms of announcements is that many people may have been at the fundraiser that was held for the family of Skeeter Smith. That was on Saturday. And I just want to give a shout out to Wes Bellamy for organizing that, because it took a lot of work and he did it real fast, and it was a fun event for a lot of people came to. Any other comments, announcements? Okay. Recognitions and proclamations. I don't have any proclamations. So that leaves us next to the boards and commissions. And the first thing we wanted to talk about was the PCOB. Do we have some appointments to the PCOB?
Yes. Charles Fleming, Susan Krischel, George Dillard, Lakeisha Washington, Patricia Jones Turner, and we're reappointing James Watson.
Okay. And just to be clear, let's see, George Dillard is being appointed as the non-voting person with law enforcement experience. And the other members are just general members, and Patricia Jones Turner is the social justice representative. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
And is that a motion?
Yes, I move that we appoint those people as you just described.
And there's one other thing we need to clarify, and that is that the length of time for each is going to get changed a little bit. And the reason is that we suddenly realized that having 2 times of appointments that are 18 months apart actually doesn't comply with the way we're supposed to be doing this, and we're supposed to convert it to an every year kind of a thing. But we haven't got that ordinance drafted yet. So for anybody who thinks, gee, I don't know whether I'm getting appointed to a 1.5-year spot or a 3-year spot or what, don't worry, it's going to get sorted out. But those are the nominees.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second for that nomination?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Can we take a vote?
Councilor Payne?
Yes.
Councilor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Yes.
Okay, that slate passes 4-0. We also, at the last meeting, appointed Elise Noyes. It turns out, however, that we should not have, that she actually doesn't qualify, and being a county resident, there was some little screw up there. So I don't know that we need to formally rescind her appointment. She doesn't qualify, so she's just not going to be on the Housing Advisory Committee. We have members to appoint there.
Yes, I would move the appointment of Helen Sporkin and Richard Fravel.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Thomas?
Councilor Payne?
Yes.
Councilor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Yes.
Okay, it passes 4-0. Next, appointing membership of the CDBG and Home Investment Partnerships Program Task Force. I've got a note here. Mr. Ikefuna or Mr. Sanders, do you have any input before we take this vote? I'm told I'm supposed to ask the question. I'm not quite sure why.
Who's Alex Ikefuna, Office of Community Solutions Director. I know there are two individuals I know that are up for appointment, and I believe there was another application that was received. I think staff will listen to what council has to, who council is going to appoint, and then if we had comment, we provide the comment at that point.
Okay. Who do we have on our list here?
Yeah, Salethia Carr, Jaquana Mason, and Helen Sporkin.
Okay.
Any comment?
No, staff is good with the appointment.
Okay. All right. So Salethia Carr, and Jaquana
Mason
Mason,
and Helen Sporkin.
Helen Sporkin. Is there a second to these nominations?
Second.
And discussion? Ms. Thomas, take the vote, please.
Councilor Payne?
Yes.
Councilor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Consent agenda. Ms. Thomas, would you read the consent agenda, please?
Consent agenda. Number 6, minutes. February 6th, council meeting. February 8th, full school board work session. February 10th and 13th, special meetings. 7, resolution appropriating funds program. Non-inference, $229,803, second reading. 8, resolution appropriating Supreme Court of Virginia Behavioral Health Docket Grant. $500. The Therapeutic Docket Program, second reading. 21, reimbursement in the amount of $7,700. Second reading. 10, resolution appropriating funds for appraisal services at Zero Street, $3,000. Reading. 11, resolution creating funds for the purchase of Charlottesville area transit radio equipment, $200,000, second reading. 12, resolution considering a special use permit, Notched Brewery expansion, one reading. 13, resolution funds for reimbursement of United Force Hotline staff, $45,559.02, one of two readings. 14, resolution authorizing transportation, one reading. 15, resolution 1025 Park Street, A and B, formerly a redevelopment, one reading.
Thank you. So we'll now take public comment regarding on the consent agenda. Those would be those 10 items that were just read to us. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. If you're calling in via Zoom, you can select the raise hand option to be placed in the speaker queue. If you've joined and wish to speak on the consent agenda, you may press *9. If there's anybody here in the council chambers who would like to speak on either of those items, on these items.
Snook, I see.
All right, so that public comment period as it pertains to the consent agenda, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I move that we adopt agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Council?
I had one, maybe I should ask this before, but the Three Notch Brewery, maybe when we heard it in the Planning Commission, but this is the first to council?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe at that point we said it can come to,
Well,
it's an agenda.
Yeah.
I'm
It would be a controversial motion. Because the important thing is that they're not actually expanding the physical plant of the brewery. They're just producing more. They'll have a few more truck trips every week. Okay, are we ready to vote? Did I ask for a motion?
You
made the motion.
And you seconded it.
So we're ready for Ms. Thomas. Take the vote on the consent agenda, please.
Councilor Payne?
Yes.
Councilor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor
Passes 4-0 to adopt the consent agenda. Rogers, is there a office?
Mr. Mayor and Council, that report, we do that. I'd like to highlight. Given the news about the derailment in Palestine, Ohio, and the tragedy there, been asked, is our community, and we've taken a look at that. I have a report from the fire department, kind of details our contacts with the companies on the trains that come through this community and the kind of cargo that's on the train and the knowledge the department has about it. I got a note from emergency manager when I questioned, "Are we ready?" His statement is this: the city of Charlottesville is prepared to respond to disaster, natural or man-made, with a comprehensive approach outlined in the emergency operations plan. Our plan is built on work that leverages our local resources with that of our and state partners through cooperative and collaborative agreements. The city is currently undergoing a complete update of its emergency planning as a result of hiring the first emergency management corps back in November. Jeremy Evans is working with Thomas, Chief Kachis, and Directors Sue Moffitt, Misty Gray, and others to ensure that the residents and visitors of our city of Charlottesville can rest assured that this government is prepared to respond as during any moment requiring emergency management. In our written report to follow at the next council meeting, I will detail interactions with the owners of the trains through our community and the kind of cargo that they travel.
Thank you. And I would say I had asked for that report because I am aware of the fact that there are some neighborhoods in the city where trains go by at a pretty good clip, and within 100 feet, 50 feet of houses. And having seen what happened in East Palestine, folks were calling me up, rightfully concerned, saying, "Are we going to have a problem here?" And I want to make sure, obviously, there's no guarantee of anything in life, but if there's a guarantee of effort, that's about the one thing sure. And I know we have a well-trained crew, and the fire department is very well-trained in this regard.
Yes.
And I have confidence in them, and sometimes just asking the question of the right person for the attention just enough.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So now we're coming to the other community matters time. We have 3 registered speakers, leaving 13 additional speakers on matters. Here again, 3 minutes. We'll now open the floor to pre-registered speakers. The first one I've got on the list is James McElwee. Is he online? Or
Mayor Snook, I do
McElwee?
not see James in the Zoom.
All right. The second person is Kevin Cox. Is Mr. Cox?
I do not see Mr. Cox either.
Okay. Third person is Matthew Gillikin, and I know we've got him here.
Looks like he comes bearing gifts.
Yes, I will say technically not gifts.
Thank you.
This is from Seville Loaning Library.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the loans.
Yes. My name is Matthew Gillikin. I'm a resident of. I'm here on behalf of Livable Seville to talk about homelessness in the Charlottesville and Albemarle. Housing is a human right, and it's a clear violation of that basic right when someone experiences this in our community. The underlying problem is also clear: insufficient. Homelessness is worsening in our area. According to the Blue Ridge Area Code of Homeless, the point-in-time count for our area jumped by 50% from 2022 to 266 people, and more than 40 people at the Havens day shelters more than 19,000 times in 2022. We need to overcome inaccurate stereotypes and address the factors that cause people to experience homelessness. While certain factors increase the likelihood of losing access to attributing to individual choices or behaviors not only misunderstands why people become homeless, it results in harmful policies and defers real solutions. In their recent book, Homelessness is a Housing Problem, Greg Colburn and Clayton Page Aldrin analyzed data from across the country and concluded that it's not levels of drug use, poverty, unemployment, or mental health problems that predict levels of homelessness in an area, nor is it weather or the relative generosity of local social services. Rather, it's about housing. The authors found that the cost and variability of housing explains regional variation in homelessness, specifically low rental vacancy rates and high rent. That should sound very familiar to us in Charlottesville and Albemarle. We have low vacancy rates, and we have high rent, and we have a worsening homelessness issue. We need to move beyond stigmas to solutions, ensure there is adequate funding and adequate housing to prevent homelessness from occurring in the first place, and get people experiencing homelessness back into secure housing. I'm here this evening to give copies of the book, Homelessness is a Housing Problem, to each of you. We've included a flyer from our friends at the Haven with information about the invaluable work that they do. We hope that you'll read this book and that as the city rewrites its zoning code and develops its budget for next year, you'll implement its lessons so that homelessness in our area will be rare, brief, and non-recurring. And once you finish reading it, please pass it on to someone you think will benefit from learning more about this important topic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gillikin. I will tell you I already own a copy, so I don't need one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll put it, she'll get a box, right?
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we can put it in a box.
Good. Gladly. Thank you, sir.
If I'd known I was going to have them, I wouldn't have bothered to buy it. But okay. Our next speaker. Do we have another speaker online?
Mayor Snook, I see no raised hands. If we want to take just a moment to let folks click the raise hand icon if they would like to. *9 if you're joining by phone. We do have 23 attendees currently on Zoom outside of the panelists, but no raised hands. Mayor Snook.
All right, so we'll close community matters at this point, and we'll move into our action items. The first action item is 507 Ridge Street, BAR denial of a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of a cottage or a shed. Mr. Werner, you going to start us off?
Mr. Lowers here.
Right.
Okay, good evening. I'm Jeff Werner. I'm the city's preservation design planner, and in that capacity, one of my roles is to serve as the staff for the Board of Architectural Review, or the BAR. And I'm here tonight regarding the appeal of the BAR's December 2022 denial of a certificate of appropriateness, or a COA, to allow demolition of a single-story wood-framed cottage shed constructed circa 1895 at 507 Ridge Street. As allowed by the city code, the property owner has appealed that decision to city council, and I want to stress also that I make this clear to the BAR that the ordinance was set up to allow for this appeal. The BAR considers things within a certain box. Council is allowed to consider other factors and other issues. So I think a lot of folks look at an appeal as a rebuke, but it's really just a continuation of the process. 507 Ridge Street is located within the Ridge Street ADC district. That's the Architectural Design Control District. Both the house and the cottage shed, cottage/shed, are identified as contributing structures, and that's a designation the city applies, and it deems that contributing structures contribute to the historic character of the district. And per city code, the demolition of a contributing structure requires BAR approval. Additionally, the city code grants the owner of a historic property the right to appeal to the circuit court any final decision by city council. So tonight's decision by you can be appealed further up. And then council's role tonight in this appeal is to make a decision on that COA. That is to determine if the requested demolition is approved or denied. And per city code, for an appeal, council shall consult with the BAR and consider the appeal, and also consider the BAR's review criteria and any other information, factors, or opinions it deems relevant to the application. Being I am staff representing the BAR, our recommendation is council should make a final decision tonight, not refer this back to the BAR. And for that, staff has provided 2 suggested motions, one to approve the demolition request, another to deny the demolition request. Those are in the staff report. And finally, if the owner of 507 Ridge Street is aggrieved by council's decision, they do have a right to appeal that decision to the Charlottesville Circuit Court. And David, if you're out there, I just emailed you some images that I can share, but very quickly, the Ridge Street ADC district is one of 8 historic districts, design control districts in the city. It's described as located in one of the city's principal thoroughfares. This residential street is lined with architecturally significant structures. Many of these residences belong to Charlottesville's wealthy merchant families and date to the last quarter of the 19th century. Smaller residences on this street were the homes of the African American domestic community. In the early 20th century, due to the advent of the automobile, many merchants moved to the suburbs. Their homes were acquired by African American community for use as rental properties, home ownership, and infill current. Sorry, this is an extraneous sentence that's in the. The city's historical survey of this property identifies this outbuilding at 507 Ridge Street as a servant's cottage. Evidence suggests that it dates to the circa 1895 construction of the house. Staff found no conclusive evidence that the roughly 12-foot by 10-foot building had or had not been used by servants, or that it was ever occupied by anyone as a residence. However, during the BAR's 2 meetings, they noted the possibilities that it had been occupied, and they also reflected on the uniqueness of this building. And in summary, the BAR, on its review in November 15th, 2022, they voted to defer action to the December 20 meeting. And then following their discussion on December 20, the BAR voted 4-2 to deny the requested COA. I guess if David doesn't have, he didn't get my note, but I wanted to share some of the images of the building, but I think some they're included in the staff report. Regarding the City Council's vision, upholding the BAR's decision, it aligns with Council's vision for Charlottesville's art and culture, and that is Charlottesville cherishes and builds programming around the evolving research and interpretation of our historic heritage and resources. It also, relative to community engagement as required by code, public notice was made prior to both the BAR's meetings in November and December. The abutting landowners were notified by letter, and the meeting was publicly posted. At both of the meetings, only the property owners spoke. No one else did. However, prior to the December meeting, we did receive an email from a nearby owner who did oppose the demolition and urged the BAR not to approve it. So based on the application material, the information standards set within the city code, and for the reasons set forth within the staff report, which that would be the BAR staff report, our recommendation is that the BAR should render a final decision and tonight and deny the COA to demolish the cottage shed at 507 Ridge Street. And I do have the BAR chair and co-chair are online and available after Mr. Lauter gets to speak. They have a brief statement and can also answer any questions. But I said, do you have any questions for me?
One question, I believe this was brought up at the BAR meeting. Absent physically moving the shed, something that was suggested, is there any ability to basically kind of approve the demolition and have a scan done of the shed to just have a permanent visual record of it? Is that a feasible option? What would it take to do that? Because I know we've done that for other things in the past.
I'm obligated here to sort of respond to what the BAR's decision was, and but yes, that's typically for any project that the BAR does review for demolition. The request is that it is documented, photographed, drawings, measured drawings, the elevations and floor plans. So there's nothing unusual about that. Why the BAR decided otherwise, that's what their decision was.
Mm-hmm. So just so I understand, so the standard process would be if a demolition were to be approved by the BAR, before that's done, no matter what, you would go in and build that?
Yeah, and typically we request that of the applicant. For example, at the courts, they're going to take down the annex to the Levy building, and they've actually already provided drawings. But yeah, that's pretty typical that we've requested it from an applicant. We do have some assistance in the community. Preservation Piedmont can help out if someone needs a hand.
And was the applicant open to that?
I'll let them answer that. Yeah.
I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Werner, I just one thing that struck me as I was looking at the BAR at the ordinance that governs all of this, and I was struck by the fact that whereas in most of the architectural design control districts there are exceptions made for certain structures, in this district it says literally every single structure within the district is deemed to be a contributing structure. And I guess my question is, that was probably done 30 years ago or something. What's the likelihood that anybody back then actually looked at that structure and said, boy, that's really one heck of a nice shack?
I don't think that was what reading through the notes of the survey, it was actually a lot of attention was given to this. And for...
To this little...
Yes, because of its being reported as being used as a servant's cottage. So you're right about the contributing structures, and there are things listed as contributing. For example, the Salvation Army came in last month for demolition requests. For some reason, that's blocked as or highlighted on the map as a contributing structure. So, and also I want to be clear, so that there are National Register historic districts in the city of Charlottesville. For instance, North Belmont is on the National Register as a historic district. Fry Spring is on the National Register. Tonsler, Fifeville. But only local historic districts fall then under the purview of the BAR, and then that contributing structure status is what's designated by City Council. So there are also contributing structures relative to a National Register district. I just want to opportunity to say that because sometimes there's some confusion. Now, in this case, this is a contributing structure on the National Register district. It's also a contributing structure on the local district. So, but I would agree with you. There are structures that are highlighted that we scratch our heads at. There are some that are no longer there. I think when I come up for air someday, we can maybe get and review all of those. But the challenge with this structure, and here it is, this is the Rich Street as you mentioned. So it is identified as contributing. The thing is, David, if you go down to the next slide, I believe, or it's up, this building has moved a couple of times. It is at least in its second location, possibly its third. So it's a building that stayed on the property, but it looks like it's been moved around and used as a shed as people find it. But at the same time, that doesn't negate its relationship to the building of the district.
Well, there's a provision. I was curious about this, so I went looking a little bit and found the National Register criteria for evaluation, and it distinguishes moved properties and says a property removed from its original or historically significant location can be eligible if it is significant primarily for architectural value, or if it is the surviving property, or it is the surviving property most importantly associated with a historic person or event, neither one of which would seem to be applicable to this shed.
Correct. And there's, I said, with conversations with folks in Richmond, informally, but the question was raised because we're supposed to ask if this shed were removed, does it place the overall district at risk? No. And so, like I say, this is the BAR reviews the National Register criteria, but this designation is local. And I'll give you a good example. My house is it is designated by the city. It is not on the state register. It is not on the National Register, but the BAR would have to review and approve its demolition. So while the National Register's
because of the importance of the person who lives there.
Yeah. It's, actually, it was the winemaker of the Monticello Wine Company from the 1880s. So there was some fame to him. But my point being is the criteria for the BAR is about that local designation. That's what brings it into play. I think you all can consider other factors, and you're correct. It's the National Register's criteria is.
Yeah.
Gives you know.
I mean, the city ordinance, I don't believe, contains a definition of contributing structure. It only recites that here are where you have contributing structures.
The single reason within the code for a contributing structure is that its demolition is subject to BAR review. Right. If it's not contributing, it doesn't go to BAR. Alter it, yes. Build something new, yes. Yeah. But demolish a non-contributing structure, I don't have to worry about.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions of Mr. Warner?
No. Well, I'm sorry, sir. Sure. So I'm kind of confused now. So is there conclusive evidence that this was a slave quarter or not?
Never a slave quarters. It's constructed
a servant quarter or
very clearly constructed at the same time as the house. Now, whether that was 1894 or 96, the transaction of its construction. The information that tells you who was there at the house. I would first look to the 1900 census and say, because they listed that, starting in the 1850s, when you saw households listed, everyone in the household by their name, their relationship to the homeowner. For 1900, Mr. Giannini didn't live here. He lived over on, I think, East Market Street. Then I looked to 1910, and, he wasn't there. There's no servants listed there. Then there's also some clues in the old city directories of who's living where, but I couldn't. I mean, it didn't.
So
I couldn't find it. Yeah. That doesn't mean it wasn't there.
I understand. You made a comment that when they did the last survey or something, that a lot of attention was paid specifically to this unit. So that's just kind of
and that's from 1994 when the city did this historical survey.
About 30 years ago. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Mr. Lauder?
Before I get going, I just want to thank the gentleman's comments regarding homelessness earlier. And this is in some way adjacent logically to that. I'm a former Marine.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thanks for saying so. And many in our community are homeless. It's near and dear to my heart. I've done work throughout my life after my time in the United States Marine Corps to try to help, so I get it. Anyway, that's not why I'm here tonight. Okay. Pardon me. My name's Clayton Lauder. I live at 507 Ridge Street. My wife and I and our 3 children have lived there for about 13 and a half years. And I wanted to appear before you tonight regarding a potential win-win for the city and for my family. Simply put, I have an 81-year-old father-in-law who is an old 81, and we are seeking to, he's approaching the end of his days, and, in this time of life needs to be near family. I also have a shed on the back of my property, this historic home that Mr. Warner referred to, that has been there in this location for, I found out today, at least 15 years. A gentleman stopped by who had lived there a number of years ago and was able to confirm that it had been there and also in disrepair for the last 15 years. In November of last year, we approached the Board of Architectural Review asking for permission to demolish this structure, which is a great place for me to put my table saw, but does little else, and construct an ADU for my father-in-law so that it's near enough to the house so that he could be with us and we could provide care to and for him towards the end of his days. He has limited resources, and as many of you may know, the costs associated with assisted living are significant, $7,000 to $8,000 a month. And even with the savings one might have, that goes very, very quickly. So the notion would be, as we approach the bar, is to demolish this structure, construct an ADU in the same format, color, characteristics of our existing home, because we love our home and we love our community, and have it serve him towards the end of his days. Then repurpose it for future value, be it one of our children doesn't launch, or a rental unit, or something of that nature. Insofar as saying that, and owning a historic home, we understand the value of the Board of Architectural Review. We understand its delegated authority by this council to attempt to maintain the community of the past. I believe you said the fabric of our community. In fact, I've approached and been before the council 3 times in the 13 years that we've lived here. Once for gutters in this very room with my 3 young children to get approval to install gutters on the front of my home. And then additionally in the erection of solar panels in non-historic, in the non-historic managed space of my yard, because green is good. I work in the environmental health and safety field and spend a significant amount of my time regarding sustainability and environmental work. Anyway, in that process, the bar, as you have heard, denied our wish to remove the shed and construct an ADU for my father, which is why I'm here tonight. So I don't want to take too much time, so I just want to hit a couple brief points with you. There are 2 broad tenets I want you to consider. Then first of all, the presumptions and assumptions of the staff report, the good work that Jeff did, and also, and more importantly, the value proposition, the win-win. The value of the construction of an ADU at this location does 2 things, one personally and one publicly. As I indicated, my father-in-law's life, Craig Dietrich is his name, is really important. It's important to us, and I know it's important as a community because we have an aged population in this town, and many of them can't and don't have the appropriate assistance that they need. We're trying to mitigate that on property we already own with a construction using the existing ADU process the city has designated, which is, well, I think, documented. The value of his life compared to this 10 by 12 falling down, if you will, shack. I know it's been referred to lovingly as a cottage. I don't see it as such. It's bucolic, absolutely. In fact, the day Jeff and his team came out last fall to take pictures, it was a gorgeous day. The leaves were coming down, it was in bloom, and one might take a step back and say, why would you want to demolish that? Well, a lot of good reasons. The value of this, maintained in perpetuity versus a man's life, I'm going to go with my father-in-law on that. This doesn't serve that purpose. Secondly, it's not historically attributable, to which Mr. Werner, Jeff just answered your question, sir, with regard to there's no one we can connect. No citizenry can be connected to this location. Is it possible? Sure. Is it probable? Who knows? But there's no straight line connection. It's not in its original location. In fact, as Mayor Snook, I was able to explain to him on Sunday, it sits right on top of my sanitary line. I know that because I unintentionally perforated my sanitary line and had what we would lovingly refer to as poopapalooza coming straight up, about 10 feet. We know where the line is, and it sits right on top of that sanitary line. Thirdly, we talk about value, and I'm using words like value. What is the value of a structure? Some things do indeed have value. Monticello has value. The Taj Mahal has value. Mount Vernon has value for their own sake because they represent a significant historical time in our history that is valuable moving forward. A window to the past, if you will. This structure, you can't even see it from the road. The only people who see it are me, my family, and our neighbors. And they're not that interested. Maybe the hotel guests on the corner of Cherry that was approved and constructed some years ago can see it, but probably only with a telescope or a pair of binoculars. We're not selling tickets. It's not roped off. It's barren on the inside. And there was some discussion about attempting to move it, and I did not, nor intend to, front the thousands of dollars that would be necessary to get an engineering report to determine whether or not it could be moved. To my eye, having done construction on, like many of you folks have done, you try to move that on a flatbed, it's falling down. The only thing you could do would be to disassemble and reassemble it elsewhere. And I'm sorry, folks, I'm not a millionaire. My family and I are not. Many might go before council in the bar with significant amount of funds. My family and I do not have them, and therefore do not intend to front it. And as I said, it's in poor shape. The notion initially was to attempt, maybe, fancifully, we could renovate it and use it for an ADU. It's not going to work. The only real, and trying to build an ADU elsewhere on my property in the non-historic managed area, it's just not realistic monetarily. We would have to run city water, city lines. This we can tie into my home. So that's the win-win. Personally, publicly, it increases tax base. Further, when and if we do decide to move, it becomes a rental unit. It addresses, in a very small way, but a real way, affordable housing in the city. It adds to the color of the community. It adds to the inventory, if you will. Not immediately, but in future, it can. So it adds that potential. Now, there was some discussion in the staff report regarding us not in parallel applying for a construction permit, which felt a little catch-22 when I read it, because to my mind, and maybe I just didn't understand it, if we want to build it where we want to build it, and the bar doesn't allow us to build it, then didn't we just waste a bunch of money getting design plans and things of that we can't use? So, again, that felt a little catch-22. I will pass these around. Notionally, this is kind of what we're thinking it might look like. Oh, let's keep the color. I'm sorry. Just give you a couple there. And this is presumptive. It's not final. We understand that we have to go before the bar to get approval for this. But notionally, it would be kind of a cabin. We would very much want it to reflect the demeanor of the houses that they currently have stucco and whatnot. But notionally, we want it to look something like that. Again, that's not proportionally the right size, and we would need to change it because we're not going to give an 81-year-old man a porch. He might fall and hurt himself. But notionally, that's kind of what it would look like. So that's why we did not do that. And then, future affordable housing. If we were able to construct this, as I said, publicly, it has an upside for urban growth and efficiency. So, quickly, because I know I'm out of time. The existing shed cannot be connected to any historical citizenry. It's not in its original location. It's been moved at least twice. If you want me to stop at 3 seconds, I will, Councilman. Can I go a little bit longer?
Just wrap it up.
Thank you. It's not viewable. It offers no real value to the community than its existence. I don't know that that's value. If it can't be seen, it's not historically available to the community. Again, the professional assessment, don't intend to spend the money unless we're forced to, because those, I've got 3 special needs kids, a type 1 diabetic daughter and 3 autistic sons. Our money goes to them, frankly, not this shed. It may be historic, it may not. I think the value proposition, the win-win I offered, is a compelling argument. I hope the council agrees. The bar could not consider that argument because it's not within their guidelines, and I understand that. Again, as I indicated, we respect the bar. We respect the process, which is why I'm here tonight in front of you fine people. Eventually, the shed will fall down. We have no plans nor intent to maintain it in perpetuity. We're not going to. Our funds are limited. We had things we had to pay for, including college and braces and cars and insulin. I think the ADU, as I said, is a win-win for the community, for the city, and for us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Louder. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Louder?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. We also have the BAR chair and vice chair available. Is that correct?
That's correct. Jeff, I didn't know if you wanted to read our statement into the record, or shall I?
You can.
Okay.
He yields to you.
Thank you. Thank you, members of City Council. I'll just have a brief statement. The BAR carefully considered the demolition application on 2 different occasions. We had the benefit of not only client presentations from Mr. Louder, but also a thorough staff report and staff history of the property. The proposed demolition of this small structure is behind the significant Gianni Bailey house on Ridge Street. And even though this is small, the shed is both old, at least 1895, and unique. And it has been identified as a contributing structure in Ridge Street Architectural Design Control District and the National Register's Ridge Street Historic District. And I'll just note parenthetically that is for us a fact. We don't debate whether it should or should not be contributing. It is a contributing structure. The city historical survey from 1994 made a point of identifying this shed as one of 3 remaining servants' quarters in the district. And after some additional information from staff, it's unclear that any others remain today. So this could be the last remaining servants' quarters in the district. Sometimes these seemingly insignificant structures can be an important thread of our community history. Historic preservation is not just about the big fancy buildings, but sometimes the relationship between the smaller structures say a lot about social structure of our community. And the relationship between this building and a larger historic home reflects a social relationship that was a very special part of Charlottesville. The city's architectural district, the Architectural Design Control District design guidelines and the Secretary of Interior standards are clear that demolition of such structures should be a last resort, and only when there is benefit to the public and other alternatives have been exhausted. The applicant in both presentations demonstrated very little interest in preserving the structure, either in its current location or by other means. And nor was the BAR presented documentation prepared by a qualified professional who evaluated the condition and integrity of this building and made clear that demolition was required. And I'll also note that the BAR, it's been a bit confusing in the presentation today. To be clear, we did not review any proposal of an ADU on this site. It was mentioned, but there were no drawings that were shared with the BAR. We've not seen the sketches that were passed around today. And in short, it was not made clear to us that the removal of the building was necessary. So after careful consideration of the application and the standards within the city code and the design guidelines, the BAR voted 4-2 to deny the COA. I'll just note a couple of other brief things that came up in the questions. To be clear, the shed does include windows and includes an internal fireplace as to the question of whether it was inhabited. I think that I'll also note it was alluded to but several aspects that the applicant brought up it related to familial situation, the potential of an ADU, the cost of the project, the increase of the tax base. To be clear, it's probably, but it's worth reiterating, those are not considerations that the BAR takes on as a volunteer board tasked with applying the city's guidelines. So with that, I'm happy to try and answer any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions?
I have no questions.
Can I just clarify something?
No, hold on. Let's see if anybody has any more questions for him.
I have no questions. I am prepared
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
Is Ms. Lewis going to be making a presentation, or are you presenting for the BAR?
I don't believe so, but she's here if there are any questions. I was not presiding over the meeting where the final vote happened, so that's why Ms. Lewis.
Okay. Well, I just noted that my little script here says that both you and she were going to be presenting, so I wanted to give her the opportunity if she wanted to, but if not, then fine. So, all right. In that case, Mr. Pinkston, did you?
Yeah, I am assuming so. Moving to approve a certificate of appropriateness for this application means that they can tear it down.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I would like to move. I don't know how other people feel.
All right.
Second.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion from council?
I would just say, it sounds like the applicant is open to having it documented. We definitely encourage that to happen. It sounds like it will anyway. But I think it's clear, I appreciate that historic preservation is a real important criteria for the city. It's just clearly overly burdensome here, and I think the benefits just don't make sense to turn this down.
Yeah, I agree. I can empathize with taking care of an elderly family member. Our mother-in-law, who's 97, lived with us, but she's in a nursing home now, and you're right on point with that cost per month, and savings can go really, really quickly. So it's very noble of you all to try to address it in this manner. So, and I want to thank the BAR because they just. I think, like you said, Jeff, they just have some parameters and they couldn't act out of it. So that's why, we have this process. So I'm prepared to support it. So.
And thank you for your efforts and their efforts to care for this as a piece of architectural history. We're all grateful for that. But I would just second what Councilor Payne has said in terms of the benefits of keeping this versus, the burden on the owner. So.
And those are the things that you all are allowed to review.
Right.
And in fact, sort of teeing up sometime in March, the First United Methodist Church and the solar panels.
I've heard about
so much will be coming to you.
Yeah.
So, but I know you had a vote to take. But thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're ready to vote. Ms. Thomas?
Councilor Payne?
Yes.
Councilor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is a resolution appropriating funds in support of Beacon's Kitchen project. Mr. Engel, I remember we had a discussion of this a couple of weeks ago. And I remember that there was going to be some amendments, some tweaking or something, but I frankly don't remember what the tweaks were going to be.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Council. Chris Engel, Director of Economic Development. This item did come to you at your February 6th meeting, and we had a presentation and some discussion. There were two tweaks, as you referenced. They are both contained in the resolution piece, so not in the staff report, but in the resolution. And the language, in concert with the acting city attorney, of the language of the resolution has been clarified to be a little more clear in terms of the funding. And then the funding stream was consolidated from 2 to 1, and that has been adjusted, and that was also by recommendation of the council at your last meeting. So those are the only two elements that have changed. Otherwise, it comes to you as a second reading tonight.
Thank you. Council have any questions for Mr. Engel? Or I see Ms. Harrell is also with us. Is that right?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for either one? Or Ms. Harrell, is there anything you want to tell us other than what Mr. Engel has told us?
No, I have nothing additional to add at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody questions for anybody?
I have no questions. I think everything we brought up has been addressed, and it's a very straightforward, good project, and I'm prepared to support it.
All right. In that case, we need a motion.
Okay, I'll move the resolution for New Hill Development Corporation Beacon's Kitchen, $500,000.
Second.
Discussion? Ms. Thomas?
Councilor Payne?
Yes.
Councilor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Yes.
Passes 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Engel. Thank you, Ms. Harrell. Good luck.
Thank you.
Go forth and do good things.
No.
Absolutely. With
All
you
right.
all's help.
Okay, so the next item which we added just at the beginning of this meeting is an item authorizing City Council to engage the executive search firm Polyhire to assist the Charlottesville City Council in the selection of a new city manager and to enable the mayor to execute documents related thereto. And I know that we have, as council, we have discussed this topic a number of different times in closed session. I will tell the general public that we had 5 different responses to our request for proposal. We interviewed 2 of the firms, and we have decided that we would like to, assuming this resolution we're about to present passes, that we would like to engage Polyhire. Polyhire was the firm that had found us our current police chief, and I think we had a good experience with them, and they had a good experience with us, and it's to me very encouraging that they're willing to come to our assistance again. So,
Mr. Ray, do we need to read this resolution into the record, or
do we need to? I think we probably should, since it wasn't ever actually printed for the real world.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
Go ahead.
I move the following resolution, authorizing City Council to engage the executive search firm Polyhire to assist the Charlottesville City Council in the selection of a new city manager and for the mayor to execute documents related thereto. Whereas the City of Charlottesville, Virginia, the city, is currently served by an interim city manager, and whereas the city issued a request for quotations, RFQ, to assist the Charlottesville City Council in the selection of a new city manager, the services, and whereas the services are more fully described in RFQ number 23-56, and whereas the interim city manager has recused himself from all aspects of procuring said services, whereas City Council has the power to award a contract to procure the services pursuant to Code Section 2-36, and whereas City Council desires to engage the firm of Polyhire to provide said services, and whereas City Council has the power to authorize the mayor of the City of Charlottesville to execute documents necessary to engage Polyhire to provide said services pursuant to City Code Section 2-36. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council for the City of Charlottesville, Virginia, that City Council shall engage Polyhire to assist the Charlottesville City Council in the selection of a new city manager. And be it further resolved that the mayor for the City of Charlottesville is authorized to execute documents approved as to form by the city attorney to retain Polyhire to assist the Charlottesville City Council in the selection of a new city manager.
It's a beautiful reading.
Yeah, you did it.
Second.
So that is motion second.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
We all have our contributions today.
Okay. Ms. Thomas?
Councilor Payne?
Yes.
Councilor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Council, are there any other business items for consideration? Any questions for city management to follow up on?
I do have one. This is not an urgent issue, Mr. City Manager, but it's one that I've gotten a couple of questions on, and I've had for years, but never thought about asking about it, and that is the traffic signal on Water Street at the Nations Bank. Is there a engineering purpose for that? So if you could have staff to look into it, and if there's not, if we can remove it, or because that's not one of the through streets, and
That's at Water?
yes.
Water and Third, I think it is.
Is that Third?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Okay, we'll look into it and get back
Third
to
Street is just a stub, basically, that runs down to it. We had a couple of questions about that just recently.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sure it probably seemed like a very good idea at the time. So, all right. So we're now at the final speaking opportunity for members of the public. Speakers will be given up to 3 minutes. You may join the speaker queue by selecting the raise hand option in the Zoom webinar, by pressing *9 if you've joined by phone, or by raising your hand if you're here in council chambers, but we have no public left here in council chambers. Are there any speakers online who would like to address us now?
Mayor Snook, I see no raised hands.
All right. Well, then I guess we're adjourned. Thank you all.